Good. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone. Hello, welcome to Krakow. Big thanks to Internet Society for having me, inviting me to have an opportunity to speak to you today. And I'm really happy to share some thoughts with you regarding some local Polish, but also not so local. It's mostly European or perspective on what's going on right now in internet, mostly internet policy and standards area. So first, some /ION, and then just press L. It should follow automatically on your browser. That's how it works. It's powered by Magic IPv6 multicast technology, so well, it should work, I hope, even if you don't have V6. Good. So my name is Marcin Cieślak, and I was originally born in Warsaw. I'm using internet from quite a long time already. You can reach me by various methods, saper@saper.info, Saperski on Twitter, and my most preferred and favorite way of communication online is IRC. I mostly hang out on Freenode servers when we do stuff with various open source developers. I'm mostly working in technology consultant mostly in Germany, in Poland, and some other countries. And since a few years, I'm already based in Frankfurt for most of the time. So I started programming when I was 10, more or less, and with 8-bit stuff. And my background is actually law and economics, so I don't think I'm a real network engineer. I did implement some networks, and I was working on mostly on cable networks in Germany. And I'm also not a programmer. I mean, I never worked in a software house or something. I was just writing some systems, some tools to help in some other jobs. This partly comes from my university background. As soon as I went to study economics in second year, I just started hacking around with computers and internet access and put the first website for my university at the time and so on. So it kind of came naturally. I'm also very involved in Wikipedia and MediaWiki software as a contributor to those projects. And this is also very interesting observation. To me, Wikipedia is right now a most important project on the internet going right now. Something which couldn't be possible if we didn't have the network. And when I'm looking at lots of policy issues and legal requirements, if something is wrong harming Wikipedia, that's probably wrong for the network too. And recently I fell in love with airports and airlines, which are like wombats and kangaroos, comparing to evolution of animals. So they use very old and legacy systems, which work since the 60s, and it's a fascinating subject to me and my recent work. And my favorite system is FreeBSD, which is, I can use it even on a laptop. Good. So what I want to talk about today is what and why we are doing this at ISOC Poland and also other ISOC chapters. What is the motivation behind it? What's happening? What is the reason that we do those things? And it's my own personal definition of ISOC. What is ISOC to me and to my closest friends? What's fascinating about Internet Society is that it's different to everyone. When I meet people from Fiji, I meet people from Pakistan, I meet people from Kenya, and we are all Internet Society family, but to everyone it's a bit different thing. And we still agree on most of principles and issues, which is just fascinating thing. It seldomly happens on such a global scale. And little apologies, my talk will be mostly political. That's unusual for that kind of conference, but I will try to include some technical details, hopefully too many to keep engineers entertained at least, or not just falling asleep or something. Good. So first about our chapter, Internet Society Poland. We founded in 2001. It was a response to some policy event when the first version of lawful interception laws was proposed in the country. So lots of people gathered together, including most of the major network operators at the time, in the founding meeting in 2001. And this follows a pattern of many organizations. When something big happens, something threatening, then people start organize. We managed to survive a few years already, but there are some certain milestones, things which happen in our history, which help us to get new people and to get more things going on. One thing is 2004. We were, and people who later became activists of our group, they stopped the Software Patents Directive in Europe. Józef Halberstadt, Władek Majewski, these are my colleagues from the chapter who were actively working on this. And they actually proved that a group of activists is able to stop such a monster like a European directive. And we got a great help from our government in this. In 2007, we published a statement on electronic voting. I think, which shows that we are not just purely oriented on the internet and on network only, but on various applications which pop out from time to time. This was some fundamental in us going into this, doing more work into this area. In 2010, we were pretty active in stopping introduction of a blacklist scheme in Poland. There was a proposal to run a register of forbidden websites by the current telecommunication register. It was already at the stage of a legislative proposal which was pushed to the parliament. So there was lots of activity in the community to make sure we don't have blacklisting and internet censorship implemented this way. In 2012, that was a relatively more widely recognized work. We were instrumental in work on anti-counterfeiting trade agreement, which was a attempt to have a trade agreement between different countries, including European Union and the United States, regarding various issues on intellectual property. So, as you see, we would do lots of policy work. We are also involved in areas of creating environment for free software and also in intellectual property, because we believe we cannot currently speak about free and open internet if you want work on those issues. And we are operating, the way we operate in a network of lots of likely-minded organizations, forming lots of ad hoc coalitions with industry partners, with privacy groups. It's a very dynamic and very interesting scheme. It's happening all over Europe right now. There are even 2, 3, 4 people groups popping out doing amazing things. And we hope we'll be able to work with all our activists together. Good. So some first part, I want to go into things which is, to me, is a fascinating subject, is protocol politics. Is it true, like some members of ITF believe, that we can separate implementation the protocol from the policy, and we can like define protocol, define technical stuff, and we can outsource the policy to the decision makers? Or do protocols really impact how we work? They really impact our life and impact our society. And I will through some examples to argue on this. So my first theme will be syntax politics. And I have a question. I see excellent tech guys in the room. What do LDAP, SNMP, and X4509 certificates have in common as a common technical basis of their implementation? Anyone? The way you define the binary? No? What? Good. No cheating. Use of abstract syntax notation. That's the way the binary information is encoded, right? So how the protocols, certificates of themselves or SNMP protocol defines data structures. And the short introduction, I mean, it's a complex technical subject, but to shortly explain what it is and how it looks like is this. That we have a tree of objects, and everything in the universe is considered to be an object, and it has some identifier which looks like this: 1.3.1.1.1.1.3. And there are organizations who manage the whole allocation of those numbers. And here's an example of a simple object which is used by network management software to tell how long the particular computer or machine or device has been running. It's called sysuptime, and if we send this identifier to the device, it should respond us and say, I'm running for 2 years now without being stopped. So that's kind of basic thing. I mean, this is a very complex subject, and we won't go into details how it works. Most of engineers know it already. But I found it recently in lawful interception interface definition in Polish law. What the law says, it tries to implement the ETSI standard, European Telecommunication Standards Organization, who defines some standards of interfaces, how police and other legal law enforcement authorities can get data from operators. And ETSI has defined some standards to do this. And it defines a range of interfaces, H1, H2, H3, and I wanted to ask if there's anybody here who ever did something with this and ever was involved in the implementation of those interfaces, maybe. So how, anyone was reading MIBs here? From SNMP MIBs. 1, 2, good. And do we have maybe somebody who was writing in MIB definition? Oh, good, you guys. Cable labs, good, yeah. Excellent. Good, so actual law from 2012. It's extending the information in the standard, which was done by ETSI, by adding some additional information to the response. So when police says, I want to wiretap this guy, the provider should come with an answer. And what happens here, they introduce something like extended identity of a wiretapped person, and the provider is supposed to deliver lots of additional data on the person being wiretapped, like what kind of account it has, since when is the customer, its postal address of a customer, mail, I guess it's an email address of a person if it's known. So basically, they defined lots of additional things: passport number, PESEL number. This is the Polish national ID identifier of every citizen, and lots of interesting things like this. What I wanted to show, it's here in this definition. I don't know if MIB writers would agree with me here, but this is a connection to the rest of the standard, which is left undefined. And nowhere in the law they say how those information should be attached to the original information. To me, it's a kind of ad hoc engineering, like somebody just took some existing file, edited some few things and said, I want to have address of the customer, I want to have passport number of a customer, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So there are two things which I learned from this, and I have two questions generally. Are we as a society aware that somewhere deeply in some some legislation which nobody really reads, as what kind of data are available and what are requested. And also, I think it is a bad technical standard, to me. So those two things, so first I'm concerned as a citizen, and second thing, I'm concerned as a technical guy. And I think this is a good example of showing how technical people can get involved into those kinds of issues and can help explain these are things. So if anyone was actually implementing this in this country, please let me know, because I really want to know how is this done, because I don't see any way how it could be solved in a very like delivering a product who is solving this. Good. So second thing about hidden political consequences embedded in the standards is, you remember where HTTP cookies were defined first time. So I'll check this and this. It wasn't HTTP protocol, the first version. It wasn't the original HTTP 1.1 specification. It just came out of the Netscape 0.9 browser. And then there came RFC 2.109, which was the defining what cookies are and how they work, and bringing a bit of state into the casual web browsing. So RFC 2.109 is having a very nice section on privacy issues and things, what should be done in the browser to help users to control their privacy with cookies. So that they should, that cookies can be deleted, that users can disable them completely, and this other thing should be allowed. And I think this is a really sane and reasonable definition and things which should be done. They are mostly implemented currently in the browsers. The problem is that most users don't know how to use them. And recently, what we got instead of this, we got a new European directive on electronic communications, which in those two short sentences probably tries to say the same. So it says, well, the cookies which are just for technical operations of the website are fine, but if there are some other cookies, the subscribers should kind of be informed what it is going on about. And the result is, we are getting those fancy JavaScript boxes in Europe on lots of websites now, on lots of websites. We are using cookies to improve our experience, find out why. That's the easiest one, but sometimes it's really huge on obscuring the whole screen, and I think it caused panic among website providers across the whole Europe, because we need to do something about cookies. I disagreed with many privacy activists in thinking that this privacy directive and the way it's done is good, but what should we do about the problem, because there is some problem to be solved. Should we fix browsers? Should we follow the do not track proposal when the browser just says this user doesn't want to be tracked? I'm not sure. And I think the problem with privacy in cookies is really in the databases behind the cookies, not the cookies themselves. There are websites like, for example, DuckDuckGo search engine, which I'm using more often recently, where you just set a preference. You say, I want to have my search engines like this, and it just sends me a cookie which says sort by something, and then it sorts by something. There is no private information about me in those cookies. So I would like to know and have a feedback on how to solve those problems, and this is part of the work we should be doing in Internet Society and in the chapters as well. Another example of how standards politics address, which I spoke with some German pro-privacy group who raises issues regarding long-lived IPv6 addresses. I think there will be lots of discussions on IPv6 later. And they raised the point that IPv6 address creates a kind of long-lived personal identifier of somebody, and it's kind of fixed and it's staying for a long time. And with regards to data retention laws we have, for example, it creates a kind of digital identity, which can be tracked and controlled by government or some evil corporations. They also said that MAC addresses are possibly included, so it can track you to your device. And they proposed that there should be maybe a legislation or something mandating that users should be able to have possibility to change the IPv6 address, like, or prefix, whatever they are getting from their provider. Well, I'm not sure. I mean, to me, it's an overblown approach to privacy, because we got some privacy because of dynamic IPv4 addresses. Whenever we reset our DSL modem, we get more. But putting the broken, to me it's a broken internet, but if we want to keep the broken internet, to prolong its life into IPv6 era, because we got some privacy, some little privacy, that we can post some stupid things on internet fora just by using our IP address. I'm not sure that's the way it should be done technically, but they actually made the proposal, which they think they should be addressed in the legal sphere. I'm not sure. I hope that that we'll be working on this and try to explain. So, after a few examples, I want to show how we work and how we do this. What are our weapons? So first is the patience. This is very important. The chapter is already 13 years old, and we survived so many ministers and so many stakeholders and so many CEOs and so on. So we have to be patient, and you have to also understand when kingdoms go away, and with Soviet Union as a perfect examples, that the things don't have to stay as they are for a long time. You need a copious free time to deal with stuff, and this is the major limiting factor. And I really wish the activists going into area of privacy and open internet would have much more sound technical expertise, and that we could talk together to learn a lot. One of our favorite weapons is Freedom of Information Act requests. Anybody can file, it's easy. You shouldn't be afraid to file it, even as a private person, and you should complain if you don't get an answer. And even a refusal can be very useful. We got a refusal regarding ACTA treaty, which was like 4 pages long and explained lots of interesting issues about this treaty, in the end saying that they are not allowed to release documents to us. But they wrote that in a way that provided lots of interesting information, which we were looking for a long time. Where the motivation comes from? In 2004, after the successful campaign to stop software patents, it was done this way that we managed to convince a representative of government of Poland, Minister Marciński, to go to Brussels to attend the session in one of the lower level commissions, and just to postpone the issue of software directive into issues which are not being discussed to issues which will be discussed. And then the snowball started to stop the whole thing. One of the Swiss activists had put a webpage which is still active, Thank Poland Info, and he was gathering signatures and saying, and we did a small event later to thank Mr. Marciński for his involvement in stopping this. And we also gave a list of people who thought that this was a good idea from all around the internet. And this is a little thing which kept me going strong for many years later, because we managed to stop such a huge legislation. In 2010, where we were stopping the directive, the blacklist proposal, we had a series of high-level talks with the government. And you can see members of Internet Society Poland board with a politician who happens to be Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk. It took some amount of social engineering to get a sitting like this around the table. And what really it demonstrated to us and lots of our people that things can be done and things can be changed. Well, you don't always win, but there are at least when you're prepared, you will be listened to. And finally, in 2012, there was an amazing ACTA week, as I call it, around 19th of January 2012, when within a few days something happened, and suddenly people in this country went to demonstrate on the streets for some very obscure reason, which is a very complex intellectual property regulation. I would say seeing this and seeing 10, 15,000 people on the streets demonstrating for open internet, and it was something very, very motivating to me. So I think that that was one of the best weeks in my life. I remember, it was something very crazy. So everybody can make own history, and everybody is welcome to join and create their own. So join the Internet Society and start your local chapter. There is also an address for the Polish chapter. You can sign up and become a member of Internet Society via our website, and you can go to internetsociety.org and choose Poland chapter if you want to become a member. This is some way to be part of this adventure, which was for me for already a few years. Thank you very much. That's all for today. And if you have any questions, or you have some ideas, and you have feedback on things which I was talking about, this is my contact data. IRC mostly prepared, but SIP or XMPP or email will work fine as well. Thank you very much, and thank you, Dan.
So there are questions, actually. Hi, Marcin. Jan.
I wasn't expecting this. So
Oh yeah. No, we're not letting you go like this. Thank you for a great presentation. It's some good job being done here. But well, you know, every time anyone mentions the privacy people and long-lived or short-lived IPv6 addresses, I go kind of berserk, because that was also a discussion in our country. So what we did was we went and talked to our privacy people and so on, and we ended the discussion when I made the analogy. Okay, so IP address is used for number the device. Okay, and license plate, the number of the license plate is used to number a car, right? And a driver in it. And every time I drive my car, I have the same number on the license plate. And that's a privacy issue, because anyone around me can track me, because that's on my car basically forever if I don't change it. So if the privacy folks demands that IPv6 addresses must change, then I demand that every time I start my car, the number on the license plate changes. Otherwise, my privacy is ruined, right? And everyone can track me. So, you know, we need to find the analogy from real life and explain these people that some things are technically wrong. Thank you.
That's interesting. Well, I would argue with you on this analogy, actually, because in Switzerland, there are websites. Government runs website when you can just go and you can search for the number plates of the car, and you get the address and the data of a person driving. That's what Switzerland is doing. I would like to see somebody trying to implement this, you know, in some other countries. Yeah. And license plates in Switzerland are much more long-lived, because it's person bound and not a car bound. You can change your plate if you have 3 cars and you drive only one at the same time. You can change, and sometimes you have pretty new cars with very old license plates, like broken and damaged and whatever, just because they are inherited. Analogy is difficult. I'm not sure. Well, looking in Wikipedia, for example, lots of people use IP addresses, and extremely valuable contributions come from anonymous users identified only by IP address. Lots of people are encouraged to participate in some discussion, not always in a civilized way. also by using only IP address and hoping that it's not that bad that somebody will call and launch an abuse request to the provider. So people learned to have a kind of hideout behind the dynamic IP address. But maybe we should study this analogy with cars, and maybe it's some solution. But given those days that we have automatic recognition of number plates and you have tracking on cars on the roads, and then your movement is really recorded, and it was ruled unconstitutional in Germany, and apparently practice continues to this day. So we might end up that our privacy in driving is also endangered. Anyone? Thank you. Anyone from the stream or something? Good. Thank you very much. And that's all. And hope to enjoy further discussions with you during the rest of the day. Thank you.